Welcome, everybody, to the GlassBullet podcast. I'm here with Deven Starr, and we got a lot to talk about. So let's get started. This man right here is very accomplished. He's done a lot in his life, and he is very happy. It's a happy man right there. He is a full-time musician. He plays venues, and he does a lot of different projects, and I'm going to let him take it away and kind of just do a brief overview of everything that he does with his career.
Right on. All right. I'm a full-time musician, not just an acoustic guy. I'm kind of known for the solo acoustic act. That's really like the main thing I'm known for. Carter knows that. And but I do other things as well. I play drums, a lot of percussion. Play bass, sometimes in a wedding band. Kind of the all-purpose back of the area, if you will. I just love being able to perform for a living. It's a huge, huge blessing. It has taken a lot of overcoming self-doubt and just kind of believing that it'll work out, even though I'm really there's so many talented musicians in this area that some of these guys are so far beyond me in experience and talent that sometimes it's just mind over matter. But yeah, Carter's right, man. I'm happy. I'm blessed, and I'm grateful that I get to be an artist as my career. And I can't really ask for much else. Got a lot of cool things happening, a lot of cool things coming up. So.
And I don't know if you noticed right there, but that was just a brief amount of how humble he actually is, because he is incredibly amazing at what he does. And I think some of the times that he accomplishes new things when I've been his friend, it's like, yeah, and he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not as surprised as he normally is when certain stuff happens. Actually, most recently, 4-5 hours ago, we had a really awesome opportunity for him, and
can't quite be released to the public yet, but it's
that's what I was thinking.
really big opportunity with some national musicians that I've looked up to for many years, and the fact that they kind of stated that they wanted to work with me is a blessing and an honor in itself.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see everything that happens as you progress and use these new connections to build your following, because I think you really have the skills, and your skills are always growing. And I think that just showing new people what you can do is going to be awesome, and exploring it with new people in a new band and all these things. I don't know if you want to talk about the band we're working on. Is that?
We have a project. So it'll be released to the public very soon here, but as we all know, it is now 2020. 90s kids, calm down. I know we're all feeling really old right now, but that's what this is about. Actually, is that the 90s are becoming extremely nostalgic. Walk into any Target, any like big box store like that, and or what do you call the superstores or whatever?
Yeah.
Walk into any place like that, you'll just see tons of 90s stuff, like 90s cartoons on the t-shirts and hats, and I love the 90s, and it's becoming so nostalgic. Being a 90s kid myself, I wanted to not just capitalize on it because it's popular, but really just revisit that part of my life and start something that I think a lot of us would have fun with and make it more than a band. But there's going to be a project coming out. Can't quite release the name yet. I know I'm at that phase right now where I can't quite release everything because of legalities, but be on the lookout on my website, devenstarmusic.com, for in the very near future for a band that is going to create an event based around the 90s. Think about the 80s parties, and think about you wouldn't know about the 80s parties, of course not. No
clue. No clue.
But growing up, my parents would go to 80s parties, and they would go to these events where they would dress up 80s, they would wear 80s clothes and listen to 80s music. It's going to be the same concept, but very 90s, all 90s in a little more in depth. There's going to be games, there's going to be best dress contests, there's going to be Polaroid picture areas where there's a cool little backdrop you can take pictures. We're going to have vinyl selections. It's going to be very cool to kind of create almost like a time warp.
Yeah.
Where you walk through the door and it's like you're in a different era.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So be on the lookout for that. That's really exciting. And of course, the mastermind here, Carter, is going to be our media manager, our our video guy, everything media, because he's the best around. He's humble as well, but like this dude, I've never met anybody this age that is this progressed and this professional. So
Thank you, man.
yeah, man. Yeah, this is going to be a big deal. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things that we work on has just came out of a want to do more different stuff together. As far as like our creative minds together, we've talked about this, really work well together, and we create good stuff together, and I think we kind of amplify each other's talents, and that all started a long time ago. It's kind of a crazy story how we actually met. When I first moved here to Florida about a year and a half ago, the first restaurant that I went to was Pop's Sunset Grill, and I went with my family. And
shout out Pops.
Yeah, yeah, we love them there. And Deven was actually playing that night that I went to eat dinner with my family, and I was kind of in a since I just moved, I was kind of in a hustle mode where I was giving everybody my card and everything, and I was kind of just sitting there at the table thinking like, oh, this guy's really good. I really want to work with music people, because I hadn't gone into music at all at that point, and I had my card, so I was like, okay, gotta work myself up to going up to give him my card, and I finally walked up there and gave him my card, and it was kind of just oh, thank you, man, and then we didn't really talk for. I think we tried to get something working a couple weeks after that, and nothing really worked out. Fast forward 3, 4, 6 months later, something like that.
It was a while.
Yeah. It was a while later, and it was right when quarantine started.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, right when quarantine started, we kind of contacted each other just by the nature of the situation, just trying to be creative in any way possible, and he wanted to we decided to film a drum cover. Was that it?
No, it was the music video for.
No, it was before that. Before that, there was a drum cover.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I was gonna do a drum cover. I had 2 songs that I was gonna do.
Yeah.
That I ended up not doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's still in my SD card. But so we kind of started to work together, and then our first major project was his Eclipse music video. I'll link it up in the card in the corner if you're watching on YouTube. And we spent a lot of time on it, and we were both really proud of it. And it was kind of when we discovered how well our talents work together, and how much we enjoy working together. And from there, we've started a live music project called Sunset Sunday. If you follow me, I know you've seen it. We work a lot on that, and we're just now kind of stemming into new projects that we can't even talk about because we're so excited about them, and we want them to do really well. And that's the reason that he's here today. Is he's throughout this process become one of my best friends, and is definitely going to be in my life forever, just because he's such an awesome dude, and he's definitely made my career more fun.
Oh man, I appreciate it, and the feeling is very mutual. You know,
Yeah.
It's very rarely. I don't know if rarely is a word, but it's very rare that I come across people that I connect with on a real level, especially in these days. Things are weird. Not that we need to say it. Everybody says it all day, every day. Things are weird these days, but it's just factual. But even before this whole quarantine thing, I didn't really connect with like everybody that I hung out with on a deep level like that. But what's crazy is like the more we do together, the more we relate, and you know, we uncover something new about each other like every time we hang out, and it's a good contrast, because sometimes, you know, you'll be in your head so technical about something, and then I'll throw a simple solution at you, and you'll be like, oh yeah, and then the same for me. I'll be in my head about some music stuff, and I'll be thinking about something way too hard, and you'll throw a simple solution at me. I'll be like, oh yeah. You know, like we have that contrast. And it's really
we put our heads together, and there's definitely a feeling of potential there that we've created stuff before, but there's a feeling of potential that we can do really, really monumentous things together. And I get excited every time we have a phone call about something or plan something, and it's creating something with somebody is definitely like a true bonding thing that you can have with somebody, less than just hanging out or playing a game together. It's solving problems, it's overcoming challenges, it's coming up with new ideas, keeping each other emotionally strong. Like, we've building a live show from the ground up, not knowing really what we were doing.
Yeah.
It has been honestly some of the most confusing, hard, challenging things that I've done as far as a creator, and it's doing it with somebody that at the time when we first started, we weren't even that close. That now it's like we kind of have talked about, like, we've only been friends for like, what, 4 months, and we're like, what?
Yeah, like, what the heck, dude? It was like April or May. It was right before your birthday.
So it was, it was probably March then.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably end of March, which is crazy. So
March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 7 months.
Yeah, and it feels like years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during this podcast, I kind of wanted to uncover maybe some of the more important things that my audience can learn, as far as building something out of something you love, rather than finding a job that makes you money. And that's always something that me, as somebody who has a very small following, I plan to push that as my following grows. I just kind of wanted to get your perspective on, I don't know what that was, to get your perspective on actually what somebody could do who has a passion, doesn't know what they're doing, to actually make that a career, but once it is thinking about doing that in the future, what you think is some of the most important things that they can do to kind of start that out, to work towards.
I would say, if you're a musician specifically, now here's the thing: as musicians, every position, if you will, like if you look at like a football team, like every position has a different value. So, the quarterback is obviously going to have more options. Like, say like a solo acoustic guys and duos, those are the kind of the most profitable situations. So if you're watching this and you're a singer songwriter, or you're just a solo acoustic performer and you want to do covers and stuff and you want to make a living, that's gonna be one of the, if not the most profitable way to do it out of the gate, in my experience. You'll learn real quick too, in the music industry specifically, or in the entertainment industry specifically. There's no such thing as matter of fact. There's no such thing as this is the formula. Everybody has their own. I can kind of tell you the way that I did it and explain my story and how I jumped into it, and it'll likely help some people, but don't think that I'm sitting here going like, this is the way to do it. This is do or die. Like, if you don't do it exactly the way I did, then you're going to fail. That's not at all what I'm getting at. So the way I jumped into it was two things. One was a little bit of luck, and one was a lot of courage, to be honest. So the little bit of luck was, I got a phone call. I used to work at Lowe's, so I was working retail, which I'm sure a lot of people work retail, or work, whatever, the 9 to 5, if you will. And I got a phone call saying, hey, I need a guitar player on this cruise ship out of West Palm Beach. And it was a full-time gig. So I was able to leave my job at Lowe's and actually make a little bit more money performing. So that's where the luck came in. But here's where the luck drained out. In October of 2014, Halloween night, that cruise line actually wrecked in the Bahamas, and I lost that gig. So I had no more music career for me.
Yeah.
So I went back to retail for a little bit, and I just started noticing how unhappy I was doing that. Like, I had a taste of like what it was to be a full-time artist, and that self-employed entrepreneur style life. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I could live another way. I don't know if I could go back to this, retail thing.
So do you think that gave you a drive to actually...
That's where I think the luck came in, was like, had I not had that, I don't know that I would have been totally motivated. I probably eventually, but not as soon. So nonetheless, I ended up just making the leap. And the company I was working for ended up filing for bankruptcy in retail, and I kind of sensed that was coming because I paid attention to the stocks and stuff. But nonetheless, I made the jump. I met up with my dad one day, and I was just like, do you think I can do this? Like, do you think I could really jump into music by myself full time? Because when I did the cruise line, I was actually in a duo. And I had never done the by myself thing, just the
Yeah.
solo acoustic thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, "You think I could do this?" And he said, "Yeah, like if you're gonna do it, do it. Just jump into it."
Yeah.
And I learned that by giving up my retail job, just literally like I gave it up and started hustling immediately. Putting that fear and that like almost desperate feeling for like I have to make money right now. It's not that like, oh, I want to make money in music. No, like I've made this my only option now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like by forcing myself to do that, I learned that ramen noodles very cheap, and and that I had to eat like really cheap stuff for about 6 months. You got to be willing. That's another thing I'm going to say to you guys is that like you got to be willing to make sacrifices, like real sacrifices, not like materialistic sacrifices like, oh, now I can't, go to Starbucks every day. That's not a sacrifice. A sacrifice is like, all right, I'm going to give up my time. I'm not going to parties. I'm going to work really hard for X amount of time, 6 months, a year, and I'm going to focus on whatever this passion is that I have.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make it my career. You don't just receive it as your career, you make it your career. So for the first 6 months of when I started doing this, I only had like 2 gigs a month, 3 gigs a month. I had like nothing. I had saved up a little bit from working in retail, but it wasn't much. It's retail. You guys know it doesn't pay that much. So I made the leap into this thing about 6, maybe almost 8 months, I think. It was really hard to get gigs. And then Facebook Live became a thing.
Yeah.
You got to pay attention to what's evolving around you. That's a big factor if you're trying to become your own boss and, take a passion that you have and make money with it. Pay attention to what's evolving. So Facebook Live became a thing, and my immediate instinct was I'm gonna go and perform on live. I only had 3 gigs at the time. One of them was at a TGI Fridays. Another one was at a biker place that was exclusive to that biker club in Venice. Then the third one was a place called the Burger and Beer Joint in Sarasota. I don't even think you had lived here yet. No. It was off University. There's a big mall there called the UTC Mall, and it used to be in there. So I performed there. So on my next performance, after I found out about Facebook Live, I took my phone and I put it on a stand, and I went Facebook Live. And I started getting comments like, "Oh, this is so cool! Like it's a live performance, but I'm at home." And so I was like, "All right, cool. There's got to be other musicians doing this. It's like It seems common sense."
Yeah.
But as I started doing it, I started getting messages from other venues and people hosting private parties. And I went from having 3 to 5 gigs a month to like 15 gigs a month within 2 months of doing Facebook Live. And then I started, building on the live performances and saving them and labeling them. And then I started pushing my marketing a little harder. And marketing, I'm not a marketing expert, but what I will say is it is a lot of trial and error, but that's good. Like the more you screw up, the less you have to waste time on. So screw up as much as you can, honestly. Like just go fail. Go fail as often as possible because you're going to learn from it. I promise.
It's good.
So the Facebook Live thing got me some gigs, and then I tried a bunch of marketing schemes that didn't work. So then I really just focused on all social media platforms trying to evenly distribute stuff. Facebook became my main thing because of Facebook Live. Then I started with Instagram Live a little bit. But yeah, so just kind of pay attention to what's evolving around you. And by the time I had done a handful of videos on Facebook Live and gotten like 15 gigs a month, by the end of that year, I had 20 gigs on my schedule, and I was making more than what retail paid me.
Wow.
After taxes and everything. Like I was actually making more. And once you get that taste, I'm going to tell you right now, once you get that taste of making at least the same amount of money that you were making at a job that you hated, doing something you love, dude, I'm getting goosebumps now. You don't even realize how powerful that is. Because once you get a taste of like, I don't need a boss. Like I can do this.
Yeah.
Once you feel that, you're like, I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
Like I'm just going to keep at this and I'm going to find new ways to win. And it's like addicting. Like you just love it, especially if you're a really, really passionate person. So all I can say is do it. Don't stop. Fail often. Put the fear in you, and just literally, like I know it's cliche, but just don't give up. There's gonna be those moments, man, where you're like, I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm gonna go back, and you're gonna fall back into your comfort zone. It's like going back to your ex. Don't do it. Just don't freaking do it, because you're giving up all of that power that you gained, you know. And I know there's so many people out there that all you need to hear is like, you can do it. And I believe in so many people that are all over like my social media that I know them on a fairly personal level, maybe an acquaintance or whatever, but I know their personality. And I'm like, man, if you just like applied yourself for 6 months,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to work that job that they're complaining about online all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not judging you if you have a job you're not happy with and you post about it. You know, some people have different ways to vent. No judgment. But what I will say is that if you continue that lifestyle, that's on you. You know, you stay at whatever your passion is. Don't give up on that. And whenever you feel that it's the time, jump out of your comfort zone and get uncomfortable and fail often and learn. And the thing is, like, success is a very subjective term. That's one thing I really wanted to get at. Success. Some people say like, oh, are you a successful musician? Like, define success.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
what does it mean? What does it mean to you? What it means to you and what it means to you, what it means to me is all different. You know, some people consider success millions of dollars, penthouse, you know, platinum records. Yeah, that's fair. That's everybody can say that's successful. But what I find success in is that I'm making far more money than I was at a job that I didn't really like. I'm financially comfortable. I pay my bills, and I'm happy. I get to do
Yep.
what I love. You know, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not rich, but I'm free.
Yeah.
Like, what's where's the measurement of freedom versus success? You know, so.
And for me, those are one and the same. Is there's a lot of different types of freedom, and the actual success for me feels like financial freedom and freedom to go out and do what I want to do instead of that's really where I'm working towards in my career, is to kind of be able to be at a point where I can, you know, go take 3 weeks and travel, or take a month and travel and do things that I wouldn't be able to do if I had a actual 9-to-5 job. And that's really like what I push towards. And I was kind of wondering, just kind of seeing where you were just talking about that was your version of success. So you being successful in your own mind, what is now motivating you to continue to get better and reach higher, what is your motivation now?
My motivation now is like hanging out with people who have accomplished more than I have. I find that to be really motivating, and I've done that along the way of this whole journey. Honestly, two things: either somebody who I forget what book this is from. Doggone it! It's one of the self-help books. I can't remember which one it is, but it's you know, finding your success is easy. Find someone who has what you want and do what they did. Right. So I look at certain musicians that have the next level of what I consider success, and I either try to contact them, or I talk to them, or I get some advice from them. Don't be ashamed, man. Don't be afraid. Don't be nervous to reach out to people. People, regardless of what the media says, people are much nicer and willing to give you information than you may think. May think, honestly. Like, people reach out to me pretty frequent and ask me like basic questions of how I became a full-time musician, you know, what steps did I take in the very beginning, and I help people out. That's what we do, you know. So as far as like my next level of what I'm trying to reach, my goal and my motivation is to surround myself with people that, first of all, motivate me, but nonetheless have something that I don't have. It may not be above what I am, but like hanging out with you, I learn from you. I learn from your technical mind and your understanding of like newer technology that I'm not as familiar with. Yeah. And like you learn more of the audio side from me. Yep. But like, I'm hanging out with some national musicians that have been drumming at a national level for over a decade. Like, I don't have that experience. So being around that makes me kind of, I don't want to say a chameleon, but like I blend into that and I start to learn from it, and I let it grow on me, you know, and I let it help build me from within. So keeping myself motivated and keep myself motivated, the way that I'm doing it is surrounding myself with people that motivate me, and trying to learn from those who know more, have done more, and not having the ego to be like, I'm good, I'm good. Like, getting comfortable is dangerous.
Yep.
Getting comfortable is super scary to me because I've done it. I did it like in the beginning of my career when I was like, oh man, at first when I was like, I'm making as much as I made at PacSun. Like, dude, this is awesome. Like, I got really motivated and then I got really comfortable.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is nice. Like, I'm making more than I made at my previous job. Like, this is tight. Like, I'm good. And then I realized, I'm like, dude, it's not like that. Like, money it's a feast or famine sometimes in this industry. So
yeah,
I could go on.
If you're not going up, you're going down.
Right. You got to progress.
Yeah.
You always got to progress. Always got to want to learn. You always have to strive. I know this is a lot of like, I might be throwing a lot of cliche stuff out there for those of you guys watching, but it's all accurate.
No, I think it's really good if you really kind of listen to what like you're actually saying, not just kind of get the general idea of it. All of the things that you're saying like individually are really good points and could really be used. I think a lot of times people hear some of the things that you're saying and just kind of be like, yeah, I gotta get on that, and not actually. There's a lot of tomorrow people. There's a lot of people that will plan.
Dangerous 3 words.
Yeah,
I'm going to.
That will plan. And one thing that I've learned as far as motivating myself to start things, because I start a lot of projects. If you follow me, you notice I'll be like, I'm starting, and you've probably seen it. I'm starting this, and you'll notice 3 weeks later it's not started. And that's a thing that I've just started to recently now overcome. By the second that I think about it, I start as quick as possible before I lose that initial adrenaline from the idea. So I will, once I thought of this podcast, I made the thumbnail, I made the art, I made the brand, and then I contacted everybody that I knew that would want to be on the podcast and set it up as fast as possible before I lost that initial hype about the idea. And that's why this is actually happening right now, is because I didn't put it off until it slowly deteriorated into just oh yeah, I'm gonna do that, and just learning to do it immediately as fast as possible before you lose that is something that's really helped me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, I'm proud that you're doing this thing, man, and I'm really excited to see where it goes, and who y'all get on here.
Yeah,
hopefully we help some people out.
Yeah, that's really one of the things that I wanted to do. The main purpose of the podcast, I don't even think I've talked about it, is getting people like you, and last week we had Blake Mankin on here, just people that can help provide wisdom, is because I feel like as somebody I have a good amount of experience for my age, but somebody who doesn't necessarily have the years and the time and the actual just years, like the amount of time of experience that I can't actually provide for people, because I'm just starting. I've been doing it for 4 years, but I'm just starting, and there's people that have been doing it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years that have that extra thing that I can't provide for people, that I feel like I benefit and you guys can benefit from hearing what they have to say, hearing their stories, hearing their lessons. And if you guys consume everything that actually happens on this podcast, I think that we can learn a lot together from people that I know that can provide a lot of wisdom and experience and advice.
One thing I'll say on that real quick is that, like, time does not equal experience. Like, just because you do something for a long time doesn't mean you're better than somebody who's been doing it for 4 years.
Yeah. I
know a lot of videographers who have been doing it for 10, 15 years who aren't on your level.
Yeah.
Because they haven't put that time in. They haven't put that. I guess I shouldn't put it that way. They haven't put the effort in. Is a better way to say it. They haven't put the extra time in. It's more of like they go through the motions. They know the basics. They know that they can set themselves apart slightly from everybody else, and they get comfortable. What do we just say about that, right? It's just, but it's about the drive, man. Like you could take somebody who has a basic understanding of an art or something creative, and give them 15 years of doing that. But if their habits are not changing over those 15 years, and they're doing the same thing for 15 years, thinking that they're good because they're comfortable, that they're going to be at a lower level than somebody than someone who maybe did it for 5 years, but constantly wanted to grow and learn, and constantly failed and screwed up, and
Yeah.
and learned from every little mistake, and applied all of those lessons to everything, and stayed aware of, like, everything changing around them, and all the new technology and the new ways to better your brand and your product.
Yeah.
Somebody who is doing that for 5 years, as opposed to somebody who's doing the same for 15 years. It's not about the time. It's not about the experience, quote unquote. Experience meaning the length of time.
Yeah.
Because it'd be more the experience of failing and learning.
Yeah.
I had another thing I was just going to say and I forgot, but
one thing I wanted to kind of just say about what you just said of like learning from mistakes and things like that is missed it. There's a thought.
The thought catcher just freaking grabbed both of our thoughts and took them away from us.
Yeah. Okay.
The thought demon.
Yeah, I think the time, the experience of time is really relative, because somebody who has been doing kind of a similar thing as me for 15, 20 years, comparatively, I work at, basically besides some of the time I do to relieve some of the stress that comes with being an entrepreneur, it's every second. There's not a lot of breaks. There's not a lot of, like, I pack my time way more than most people do, and I sleep a lot less than most people do, and I feel like that's another thing besides just effort that has helped me out, and I got this genetically and just from motivation, is what do you do in a 24-hour day? Like, most people probably spend a large chunk on social media, a large chunk on video games, a large chunk sitting there. The one thing that I noticed a few years back is sometimes you can be doing nothing. Like, you can be sitting there mindless, like scrolling. That's a thing that I really had to overcome, is like just scrolling through like the Instagram Explorer. And I've deleted, if you follow me, you've seen it, I've deleted social media a bunch of times, because that's one thing that, like, that just being in a mindless state and not working is something that can slowly bring you into an unmotivated, depressed state. And just learning to get rid of those things. Like, I did this thing, I learned it from Chris Dew, is time blocking. And I sat on that board over there and put 24 sticky notes on it and figured out what I do every hour of every day. And I understand that you don't do the same thing every day, but if you kind of are general about it, you're like, wow, I only work for 3 hours a day. What if I made that 6? I'm getting twice as much work in.
Yep.
And normally you're not taking out anything else important. And when you start to slowly work yourself up to working more in every day, you have that much more of an advantage in whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's all about goals too. You're talking about the time block thing. That's very organized, very professional. It's all about goals too, man. You got to set those timely goals. You have to say, like, this is what I'm going to accomplish by the end of this month. This is what I'm going to accomplish by the end of this year. So I'm going to accomplish, and keep track of it. Keep yourself accountable. Accountability is huge.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easy, especially once you get to the point, as I said earlier, of passing your previous income. Like, say you're working a retail job, you follow your passion, you find a way to make money in it, and now you're making a little bit more than you were making. Then now you're just like, you're confident, and sometimes you get comfortable. You got to keep yourself accountable. And sometimes that can be hard, man. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? So keep yourself accountable for those things, and set your goals. It sounds silly and it sounds very basic, but it helps.
It does
more than people realize. You set your weekly goals. Start with weekly and monthly. Just start there, because as one of my backgrounds says on my phone, I think it's the Galaxy back here. It says, oh my goodness, it's basically, it says a bunch of little goals equals. I'm gonna sound so stupid.
It's okay. No, dude, go ahead. We'll work it out.
Yeah. We're gonna cut this out.
Okay. No worries.
There it is. And we're back. So I had to go get it. Says a little progress each day adds up to big results, and that's so insanely true.
Yeah.
Just start off with setting your goals, weekly goals, even daily if you have to. Start daily, weekly, monthly. Stop at monthly and just start beating those goals. Watch yourself check those boxes, like how good it feels to check those little boxes you make. Like, oh my God, I accomplished that thing I wanted to accomplish. Like, it's so motivating, So then you start, your quarterly goals, then your 6 month goals and your yearly goals, and you start seeing like, oh my God, there's actual progress here. Do that, use your time blocking, which is a great method. A lot of like $1 million earners use that. Again, subjective. Not everybody's trying to be a millionaire. Just want to be financially free and do what you love.
Exactly.
So, do your time blocks. Focus on growing every day and setting goals. It's such a big thing, man. Setting those goals. I know it sounds so simple, but
one thing that I figured out
it works.
is having a goal when you just put it on a piece of paper. Say you get a blank piece of paper and you write, just to be in general, I want to make $1 million a year. If you just write that on a piece of paper, you have no actual steps to get there. So normally I don't write that on the top of the paper. I write it on the bottom of the paper just to get real practical with you guys. I write it on the bottom of the paper and I think of myself as at the top of the paper. And now you have to fill in all those blanks. And you have to write, okay, so what's my first step that I can get just like 0.1% closer? And then you kind of build a plan for yourself rather than smaller goals. You build a plan for if I just get somebody to pay me for what I do, if I just get somebody to pay me every month for what I do, if I just get somebody to pay me for every week for what I do, if I start making
numbers are the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Ever.
Yeah.
You get 1,000 people to pay you $100 a year. It's $100,000.
Yeah.
It's numbers. It's literally everything is a numbers game.
But you have to break it down. You got to
exactly.
It has to be broken down, and you got to be like, okay, so I have this amount of people paying me this amount throughout this amount of time. How do I get people to do that consistently? And that's literally that's exactly how you make a plan, and then all you have to do from there is work. And there's not a lot of mental process after that, after you set that plan for yourself. And from then on, it gets a lot less stressful. Mm-hmm. It gets a lot less stressful when you have plans and you have stuff written down. That's just write stuff down, and it feels a lot better. That's what I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think that was a pretty good podcast.
Yeah, right
on. I really appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you having me, man. It's good.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We got a lot of big things coming. He has a lot of big things coming. Obviously, we'll update you guys on everything, and just check the description below, and I'll have a lot of information on him, and you can check out his music. He has a great EP out now, and I think you guys should listen to it because he's amazing at what he does.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Hey, be safe and be good to each other, guys. Love y'all.